Good morning. Welcome to a fresh edition of your breakfast show on Leadership Television Inside Nigeria. Today is September 11, 2025, and my name is Winifred Ugbebo, your host on the program. Without wasting much time, we'll see what the national papers are saying this Thursday, including Nigeria's most influential leadership. Let's go to leadership, see what is they have on their cover today. Leadership's leading story says Tinubu has ordered us to crash food prices, says minister. And that story is on page 4 of leadership. Tinubu has ordered us to crash food prices, says minister. 2027 punish politicians violating campaign rules now, Jega tells INEC. Of course, that's the leading story on other papers we have today on our lineup as well. At least we have 2 or 3 papers leading with that story. Punish politicians violating campaign rules now, Jega tells INEC. But however, now also another same development, the INEC chair did say that they don't have, because of weak laws, they cannot actually enforce it. But however, let's move on with leadership newspaper. Bandits kill 5 soldiers, 10 villagers in Zamfara ambush. Bandits kill 5 soldiers, 10 villagers in Zamfara ambush. That story is on page 7 of leadership. 3 policemen slain in Kogi. Alleged Ansaru terrorist commanders face 32 charges today. Anti-graft agency Greece Meli Kyari. Dangote Cement shareholders received 3.3 trillion naira dividend payment in 15 years. Finance minister clashes with reps panel over budget implementation. That story is on page 7 of leadership. Finance minister, that is Wali Edun, clashes with reps panel over budget implementation. We move towards the mindset of leadership, and on the business boss, new act, national tax identification numbers now mandatory for crypto bank transactions. New Act, national tax identification numbers now mandatory for crypto bank transactions. That's the business cover story on leadership today. But let's take some excerpts from that leading story. Of course, we've been having stories on new tax reforms, which starts or kicks off in January 2026. Of course, so many developing stories have been emanating from there, and we'll take excerpts from one of such stories today. Okay. Beginning from January 2026, Nigerians will be required to provide their full details, including national identification number, NIN, tax identification number, tax ID, phone number, and address, among others, to access services from virtual asset service providers, VAPs, for crypto and other virtual asset trades. This new requirement, embedded in the Nigerian Tax Administration Act 2025 and the Nigerian Tax Act 2025, is designed to plug loopholes in the financial system and tighten regulatory oversight across both the formal and digital economy. The country's tax reforms also make it mandatory for anyone earning an income to have a tax ID to access services from any financial institution, insurance company, or stockbroking firm. Excerpts from the business story on the business boss of leadership cover this Thursday. And of course, to discuss more with us is a leadership's analyst, Simon Elijah. Simon, good morning and welcome to Inside Nigeria.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Continue with the front headline
Good
stories
morning.
on leadership.
Hello.
Okay,
Can you
Simon,
hear
good
me, please?
morning.
Yeah. Yeah. Good morning, man. So my
Welcome
name is
to
actually
today's
Samson
Inside
Elijah.
Nigeria, and thank you for sparing us your time.
Yeah. Thank you very much. So I'm very very delighted to join you this morning, and you are doing a very good job. So actually, I I was invited to talk about the marching order of Tinubu on the front page. The marching order where he he actually ordered the Fair Committee to crush food prices. So this is actually a very good development because since when Tinubu was inaugurated in May 29th, he actually said subsidy is gone, and since then there has been increase in prices of food and increase in virtually everything. Nigeria have experienced food insecurity, and this has put so many Nigerians in hardship. People cannot actually buy food. If you could recall, before Tinubu was inaugurated, food pricing was actually in a very minimal rate. Every Nigerian could afford to buy food. If you could recall, as at when Buhari was still in power before Tinubu took over from him, the prices of rice and other food items were a bit cheaper. But with Tinubu administration doing all they can do in their power, we have also seen a tremendous reduce in food pricing recently. Um, some places now we can buy a bag of rice as low as 70,000 naira. Even in some marketplaces, you can buy as low as 65,000 naira per bag. Other food items like beans that was so high to about 4,500 naira recently is around 1,500 naira and thereabout. So many other food. And yesterday, the Minister for State for Agriculture actually said President Tinubu administration has directed the FEC and the Ministry of Agriculture to crash food pricing and also ensure that every route that that food is need to be transported to the masses is being secured. So with this, I know Nigerians will be very very happy, and food is going to be available in an affordable and accessible manner for a layman that cannot afford rice before. We can see that it's, it's actually very cheap now. Rice is cheap in the market, and other food items. And with the new exports and with the new improvements in stopping exports of our raw materials, with this, Nigeria will be able to compete with other nations. With this, Nigeria will be able to be global food producing nation. And when we can produce our food and utilize them and consume them ourselves, I think it will help us to be able to have abundance. We won't be dependent to other nations. And with this development, I think Tinubu administration has really, really done good.
Well, something. Thank you so much for your thoughts on today's leading story on leadership newspaper. Tinubu has ordered us to crash food prices. However, Samson, they say talk is cheap. It's not enough to say we are going to crash down food prices. How does the federal government intend to do that without actually going draconic? Remember, we are in a democracy. You can't actually force people to lower food prices, except maybe federal government is planning to import those food prices.
If you could recall, Tinubu had earlier said in June during his speech at the National Assembly that Nigeria is on the path to achieving food sovereignty on the back of measures put in place by his administration. Tinubu said this during his Democracy Day speech at the National Assembly. So he said, our Nigerian first policy will further enhance progress as we consolidate market-driven growth. So what it means here is they will consolidate the market-driven growth by ensuring that every mechanisms that is needed for the market to strive will be put in place. They will improve economic performance in encouraging and validate the soundness of our policy measures. You know, when our policies is favorable to us, then every other thing will fall in place. Our medium-term growth target remains an economic growth. That was what he said, that their medium-term growth target remains economic growth. So when you target the economic, I think by so doing, when you target the economic, you are trying to put every other thing in place. When the economic is in a standable manner, in a manner that you can actually say, oh, this present administration, they are doing so good. Every aspect of the economy is being looked at.
What?
Not that they will
Something,
say,
sorry, I still have to
yeah,
cut in there because you are beginning to
okay.
sound like the mouthpiece of this present administration. However, we are talking about crashing food prices. Yes, the president is waiting to impose 5% petroleum tax
Yes.
coming next year. So how does that not contradict this order to crash food prices?
Well, in as much as it's look contradicting, I think it's still going to solve some of our major problem. Do you understand? I know the petroleum pricing is also going to affect the food in one way or the other, because petroleum affects virtually everything we do in the country, because our source of transportation, one of our source of major transportation is petroleum. When we have this food in the farm, the farmer needs to transport it to the market, and when the price of petroleum actually goes up, it will affect the food pricing. But with what the minister said, that they have received a standing order to crash the food, I think they have other measures, they have other possible ways of making sure that the petrol pricing will not affect the cost of food. Do you understand?
Oh, thank you so much, Samson. But away from food talk, let's move over to the National Assembly, where you currently cover. What is happening
Yeah.
there, considering the issue regarding the suspended Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan? Yesterday, we learned that
Yeah.
the National Assembly said they were not going to allow her to resume, and this has continued to draw flags from all sections of Nigerians, including the opposition parties and CSOs.
So on the case of Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan, I think what she needs to do is to actually adhere strictly to the rules. She knows the rules, she knows the standing order, and she knows the procedures to go about it. If she wants to resume, she have to follow every procedure. She does not need to go around and start making false allegations, saying uh, she she needs to resume immediately, because she knows the case is before the court, and the court has its power. The National Assembly also has its power. The court cannot give National Assembly the the rules to play on, because they are two different institutions. The National Assembly as its own is an institution. The court is an institution of its own. If you could remember, if you could recall earlier, when they sent her on the suspension, they asked her to publish an apology on two major mainstream newspaper, and also go on her Facebook to make a public apology, which she did not adhere strictly to that. And now the court is before the case is before the court, and what the National Assembly is standing on is that the case is still in the courts, and is not in any way for them to now say, okay, you can resume. They have to go to the court, and the court has to assent to it before she will resume. We have seen so many I've seen opposition, I've seen so many lawyers, I've seen former Minister of Education, Obi Ezekweli, coming out to bash the National Assembly, to say they should allow her to resume. Is her right, is her constitutional right. She was being voted to come to represent her state, her constituency. But out of all of this, due process needs to be followed. So I will only speak from the angle of let her follow the due process in order for her to come back to her duty. Do you understand? She should follow the due process. The National Assembly have replied to her message that she sent, the letter she sent to the clerk of the National Assembly. They have replied that she cannot resume. And in the letter and in their response, they stated clearly that the case is still in court. It is sub judice. So she should go to the courts and ensure that she is being cleared. I think on that one, Natasha needs to adhere strictly to the rules that is being in place for her to get back to her duty at the National Assembly.
All right, thank you so much, Samson Elijah. Well, viewers, you've had the pleasure of hearing from leadership analyst, who incidentally is a correspondent for the Senate, Samson Elijah. It was a pleasure having you on the program. Thank you so much.
Thank
Now
you
we'll
very
go
much.
back to the newspaper review where we left off, and that is leadership. Still on the cover of leadership, prolonged blackouts as national grid collapses for third time in 2025. And at top, the masthead of leadership, Soyinka vows to shun US visa re-interview today. Ellison overtakes Elon Musk as world's richest person. That story runs on page 28 of leadership. And from there, we move to the page 3 of the paper where we have our stand. Today's stand is on counting the cost of open defecation. Counting the cost of open defecation. Today's stand in leadership. Recently, there was a cholera outbreak in Bukuyum district of Zamfara state, which led to the death of 8 people and affected over 200 others in 11 communities in the state. A federal lawmaker from the state, Suleiman Abubakar Gumi, calling for urgent action from the state government and international non-governmental organizations, warned that any delay will cause more lives, especially among women and children. We recognize that cholera is common and remains quite a significant public health challenge in Nigeria. Sadly, the country continues to record consistently high numbers of casualties across the states arising from cholera and other preventable water-related childhood diseases yearly, with no tangible effort to curb the situation. In 2024, Nigeria recorded approximately 10,837 suspected cholera cases between January and September, with a case fatality rate of 3.3%, as the Nigerian Center for Disease Control disclosed. We move towards the stand, that is towards the conclusion. The National Orientation Agency must embark on widespread and continuous sensitization across all areas, with state governments also buying in and taking ownership. Establishing wash policies nationwide to provide clean drinking water would directly and indirectly serve as a basic step in controlling cholera and other related diseases in Nigeria. Excerpts from today's stand in leadership, that is the editorial too, and of course the view of the paper for today, Thursday, 11 September 2025. From our stand, we move to the back page of the paper where we have Being Blunt with Muazu Elize. Being Blunt with Muazu Elize. Muazu Elize is the Group Managing Director of Leadership Newspaper Group. He is writing on indigenous contractors' gas for air. Indigenous contractors' gas for air. What must concern an average Nigerian is that the country is trapped in a web of unsustainable debts with little tangible outcome. Quote from today's column with Muazu Elize, Being Blunt, and is writing on indigenous contractors' gas for air. Before we leave that back page, let's visit Ghana Must Go. The minister says tertiary hospitals spend 180 million naira on power. And of course, Ghana Must Go told him, clap for yourself. It's very, very funny. Let's conclude with that. We conclude review of leadership this Thursday. For more, log into the website of leadership, www.leadership.ng. We move ahead to the next paper we have on our lineup, and that is on INEC. INEC says 2027, police INEC move against early campaigns. 2027, police INEC move against early campaigns. PDP ADC accused APC of violating rules, call for penalties. IG vows to enforce laws. APC denies campaigning, says Tinubu party respect rule of law. NNPP urges caution. We have the picture of our president, Tinubu and Macron, France president, have launched amid France political tension yesterday. Because we have the president and the Macron on one hand, and you have protesters in France yesterday. Our terror attack suspects lose bail bid. Police arrest Obi of Lagos fuel installation. EFCC quizzes SNNPC GMD Kyari over refinery contracts. That story is on page 14 of The Punch. Beside the masthead of The Punch is leadership's leading story. Tinubu orders fresh push to crash food prices. That was the story that we just looked at on leadership, where we also have leadership analysts to throw more light on that story. Above the masthead of The Punch, federal government rakes in 600 billion naira VAT from Facebook orders. Reps grill Edun Bagudu over 2024-2025 budget delays. Yobe holds mass burial as bandits kill 14. That concludes review of front headline stories on The Punch this Thursday. For more, log into the website of The Punch newspaper. From The Punch, we move over to the next paper we have on our lineup, and that paper is also talking about early campaigns and punishment, and that is Daily Independent. Daily Independent says no law to punish politicians over early campaigns. INEC. Yakubu Jega seek urgent electoral reforms before 2027. Warned without reforms, poll integrity could be compromised. INEC officially recognizes David Mark-led ADC leadership. These are kickers to the leading story on Daily Independent this Thursday. No law to punish politicians over early campaigns. However, that was also the leading story on The Punch. Punch said that they are going to involve police, but however, Daily Independent story doesn't say so. Meanwhile, the story continues on page 29 of the paper. Federal government says 2024 budget performance has reached 80%. Moves to crash food prices. UN report ranks Nigeria 4th as attacks on schools surge 44% globally. NCAA directs airlines to fly without unruly passengers. National grid suffers collapse over tripping of Genco. Farmers warn 5% fuel tax may worsen food inflation. NUPROC secures over $400 million in decommissioning liabilities. Atop the masthead of Daily Independent, blocking Senator Natasha's return affront to democracy, coming from ADC. Senate won't entertain any matter in court, says Adara Modu. Ignoring Supreme Court ruling on local government autonomy was injustice. NULGE urges Tinubu to show commitment, execute judgment. That concludes review of front headline stories on Daily Independent this Thursday. For more, log into the website of Daily Independent, www.independent.ng. From Daily Independent, we move over to the next paper on our lineup, and that is Nigerian Tribune. Nigerian Tribune is on ADC recognition by INEC. It says INEC finally recognizes Mark Aregbesola others as party executives. Party to Senate, Natasha's suspension has lapsed. Further obstruction of abusive. Again, National Grid collapses. NISO begins probe. Dangote Cement pays over 3.3 trillion naira in dividends to shareholders in 15 years. Aviation, NAMA raises alarm over threat of climate change. NAMED begs for increased support. And in health, energy drinks may raise suicide risk study. Like I mentioned yesterday, Daily Nigerian Tribune has a health story daily on its cover. Energy drinks may raise suicide risk, especially for those who like energy drinks. Second leading story on the cover of Nigerian Tribune this Thursday, reps blame delay in 2025 budget implementation on procurement process. Uncertain over presentation of 2026 budget estimates, as 2024 budget implementation stands at 80%, despite extension till December 2025, coming from the Finance Minister, Edu. NULGE seeks Tinubu's intervention over Osun local government allocation seizure, calls on FCT Minister, COAS, to intervene to investigate demolition of National Secretariat. We move to the masthead. 2027, INEC tells politicians to stop early campaigns, says aspirants' action violates Electoral Act, seeks amendment to enforce sanctions. With that, we conclude review of front headline stories on Nigerian Tribune. For more, log into the website of Nigerian Tribune. From Nigerian Tribune, we move to the next paper we have on our lineup, and incidentally, it is the last paper for review this Thursday, and that is the Daily Times. The National Assembly Service Commission moves building new houses for 469 federal lawmakers. The story runs on page 10 of the Daily Times. NASC moves building new houses for 469 federal lawmakers. Rest meets finance budget ministers over 2024-2025 budget implementation. Federal government targets seamless digital payments, financial inclusion for all Nigerians. Court denies 5 Al-Shabaab terrorist bail. Senate's treatment of Natasha may hinder women's political participation, ADC. River Park Estate, FCTA demolishes illegal structures, reclaims undeveloped plots. Lastly, on the cover of the Daily Times, 2027 criminalize premature campaign with stiff penalties. Jega, that is the former INEC chair, criminalize premature campaign with stiff penalties. The story continues on page 15 of the Daily Times, and that also concludes review of front headline stories on the Daily Times this Thursday, September 11, 2025. For more, log into the website of the Daily Times, www.dailytimesng.com. Well, viewers, is on that note, we conclude today's Inside Nigeria. Of course, we had the pleasure of having leadership analyst Samson Elijah to throw light on the developing story on leadership today, and of course, developing story between Senate and the suspended Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan. Samson, thank you so much once again. It's on this note we draw the curtain on today's program. Don't forget to join us same time, same station tomorrow for another fresh edition of the program. My name is Winifred Ubebo. Thanks for joining us.
Be part of our brand. Leadership for God and country.